Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Tuesday. Almost forgot that today was Tuesday. I woke up this morning. Actually, that's not true. I got home last night from a Bible study that I went to, and I sat down to watch Hard Knocks, and I was like, wait, today is not Tuesday. Yesterday was Monday. Today is Tuesday, and there's just so much stuff going on. There continues to be just so many things happening in the Indianapolis sports scene, and I'm going to get to all of it. All of it. Joining me at 11 o'clock, top of the hour, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. He is scheduled to join me, talk a little Colts. I haven't talked to him since the preseason game from last week, so he'll weigh in, give me his thoughts on that, his thoughts on Anthony Richardson, and just his general thoughts heading into the NFL season. And yesterday, the Colts had a media session. So Shane Steichen and a bunch of other guys went to the podium. Anthony Richardson did not, which is fine because Shane Steichen said plenty of things about Anthony Richardson because Shane Steichen, being the offensive-minded head coach that he is, you know, he was partially hired to be the guy that helps develop our guy, Anthony Richardson. And he is our guy until, you know, the Colts decided to move in a different direction. And he was asked, you know, 3 questions in a row on how Anthony Richardson has improved, you know, from last year to this year and through training camp. And here's what Colts head coach Shane Steichen had to say about how Anthony Richardson has gotten better.
Yeah, it's been huge. Like I said, the growth, we just want to see growth week in and week out with him and all players, you know what I mean? But he did a hell of a job on that first drive. And then, like I said, there was great, you know, tape to teach off those next couple of drives. I mean, that miscommunication, we talked about his coaching staff, like that's on us too. Like that's on us. Like we got to teach that better, you know what I mean? And so we don't have those communication deals. So again, I'm super excited for the season. I'm super excited for him too.
Talk a lot about his legs, but what about his feet, footwork, things like that? Have you seen him grow, get better at? That's awesome.
I think he's got tremendous feet, personally. He's super quick. He's obviously very twitchy in the pocket, can move, can get out of things. But his footwork, when he takes his quick 5-step drop, how fast he gets back there, how the ball jumps off his hands. I mean, the feet and your eyes all tying together. But he's made strides in that too. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
He had that, like you mentioned, that miscommunication with Granson, but like the next drive, he hits that throw to Granson, kind of that later throw in the middle. So, I mean, what have you seen just from his ability to kind of move on from where there are mistakes and just get to the next one?
That was a big time play. I mean, for me, pre-snap, the look they had, it was kind of a buzz safety look. And I was like, shoot, that's going to be a tight window. And he's got the arm strength to make those throws. That's what's special. And he needled that thing right through there to Granson. That was a big time throw by him for sure.
That was Colts head coach Shane Steichen talking about the improvements that we have seen and that he has seen in Anthony Richardson from last year to this year. And, you know, it's perfect the way that, you know, the first question was talking about Anthony Richardson and his decision-making. And that is where it all starts. And that is the thing that, you know, I want to see continue to develop from Anthony Richardson. I had Brent Daughtry of, you know, 104.5 The Zone in Nashville on yesterday. We talked a little Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Colts, Titans, and the division as a whole. It was a great conversation. And when he was talking about Will Levis, he said something interesting. Brian Callahan, Titans head coach, had said that if Will Levis is just willing to take the checkdowns, which is oftentimes a good decision because it means everything else is covered, then the completion percentage can go up. And that is, I think, the thing that we want to see from Anthony Richardson. When we look at the best quarterbacks in the NFL, that completion percentage is at least 65%. Sometimes it's higher, 67, 68, maybe even 69%. And so that is something we need to see from Anthony Richardson, this improvement in decision-making, this willingness to take the check down. And when we watched that successful drive against the Cincinnati Bengals last Thursday night, that is what we saw. We saw good decision-making. And even the drives after that, we saw consistent good decision-making. Were some of the throws inaccurate? Without a doubt. Okay, was the interception pretty? No, miscommunication clearly. That was obviously an option route. But the decision-making from last year to this year seems like it has improved. There is more of a willingness to hit singles, right? And look, when you're trying to hit a home run every play, your batting average isn't going to be very good, right? Just how if you're trying to hit a 25-yard completion every play, your completion percentage isn't going to be very good. But when you're willing to take the singles and you're willing to just make good decisions with the football and not force something that isn't there, like that is the start. That is a major part of the foundation to creating a good, solid franchise quarterback. And hearing that Anthony Richardson's decision-making throughout the course of, the offseason from last year to this year has improved. And the fact that we saw that a bit on Thursday should give us a little bit of hope for what Anthony Richardson is going to look like in, however many days. Not very many days, okay? The NFL season is almost upon us. So the decision-making from last year to this year has improved for Anthony Richardson, and that's where it all starts. Steichen hits on something there in the middle about how he's got great feet. That seems important to me, but, we'll kind of see how that progresses throughout the season. And I want to focus on that last little bit there from Shane Steichen where he's talking about this incredible throw. If you haven't seen it on Twitter, it's people question the accuracy of Anthony Richardson, and rightfully so. And then you see this throw that he makes down the seam, like just over the fingertips of a linebacker and just in front of the defender guarding Kylen Granson. And it's just a perfect ball. It's right on the numbers. And then you see him make throws like that. And it just reminds me of why they took Anthony Richardson. Okay, he is incredibly talented as a thrower of the football from an arm strength perspective, and that matters. Okay, the reason why Tua Tagovailoa isn't a guy that people perceive as a Super Bowl level quarterback, a quarterback that's able to, win games in the playoffs in January. But the reason he's not perceived that way is because he doesn't have a very good arm. Arm strength is an important aspect of playing the quarterback position, and seeing Richardson drop back and rip it on a rope, 20 yards downfield, putting it right on Granson's numbers, that should give us a little bit of hope for where Anthony Richardson is going in terms of his development. I don't know if he could have been that accurate at this time last year. It was a heck of a throw. All right, so we have to remember that about Anthony Richardson, even though there are going to be mistakes this year. The decision-making is getting better, and he's incredibly talented. The other thing that we have to remember is that Anthony Richardson is just a kid. He is 22 years old. Okay, second year on the job. I don't know what you do for a living, but I'm willing to bet that when you were 22 years old, you made mistakes at whatever job you work for. The only difference is you didn't have 70,000 people yelling at you when you made mistakes, and you didn't have people tweeting at you when you made those mistakes. I know for me, don't ask my boss the mistakes I made when I was 22. They're not good. They aren't good at all, but that's part of the growth. Okay, for anybody who's getting into a new profession or moving up a level in whatever, mistakes are going to be made. That's what happens with young people at any job, whether it's playing quarterback in the NFL or it's being an accountant or working at a bank or being a salesman. No matter what profession any 22-year-old is in, they are going to make mistakes. And Anthony Richardson is no exception to that. Okay, Anthony Richardson is incredibly young. When you look at this year's NFL draft and you look at all the guys taken in the first round, if you look at all the quarterbacks drafted, here are all the quarterbacks taken in this year's NFL draft that Anthony Richardson is younger than. Anthony Richardson is younger than number 1 overall pick Caleb Williams. He is younger than 12th overall pick Bo Nix. He is younger than number 2 overall pick Jaden Daniels. He's younger than the number 8 overall pick Michael Penix. He's younger than Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, who are both drafted in the 5th round. Joe Milton, he's younger than him. He's younger than Devin Leary. He's younger than Michael Pratt. Okay, Anthony Richardson is younger than every quarterback drafted this year except for 2, Drake May and J.J. McCarthy, who are both 21, and he's almost younger than J.J. McCarthy. Okay, Anthony Richardson is incredibly young, and that is something that we have to keep in mind throughout this season, okay? And it's clear that he's young in everything that he does. Okay, I watch every time Anthony Richardson is at the podium, I go back, I watch the video because I'm pulling audio from my show or Dan's show, which you can listen to from noon to 3 on the Indy Sports Ticket app if you want to go download that at the App Store or the Google Play Store. Okay? And so, like, you sit back and you listen to him just answer questions, and I find it funny. I find it comical that he and Shane Steichen get a lot of the same questions asked, and their answers just couldn't be any different. I find it, like I said, very comical. So after the Bengals game on Thursday night, Edey Mitchell scored his first touchdown of his NFL career, even though it was a preseason game. He scored his first touchdown against the Bengals. And Anthony Richardson was asked about it, and so was Shane Steichen. And they're different, and their answers are just completely and totally different. So here's what Anthony Richardson said about Edey Mitchell's first career touchdown.
I don't know. It just felt good just having that complete drive right there. We executed, play by play. And, luckily he was the one to catch the touchdown pass. And I hope he kept the football.
He's asked a very simple question. How do you feel for Edey Mitchell scoring his first career touchdown? I don't know. And then Shane Steichen gets asked the exact same question. And here's what he had to say.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, obviously, when you get out there, whether it's preseason game, regular season, but to get in the pay dirt as a rookie is huge. It's a great job by Anthony. They brought Blitz Zero there, had to drift a little bit, got that ball off, hit him in stride. That was a big-time play.
Shane Steichen, they're both asked the exact same question. Like, how do you feel? What was it like for Edey Mitchell to score his first career touchdown? And Anthony Richardson very much sounded like a 22-year-old guy. I don't know. I hope he kept the ball. Shane Steichen, on the other hand, so glad for Edey Mitchell, man. It's great. So glad that he got to the pay dirt, whether it's the preseason or the regular season. Great play there by Anthony Richardson. Just a much more professional answer. Okay, one guy sounded like a 22-year-old, and the other guy sounded like a 39-year-old. Okay, like we have to remember over the course of the season that Anthony Richardson is only 22 years old. Okay, and he hasn't played a ton of quarterback. I'm going to harp on the fact that he's only started 23 games since high school. That needs to be remembered throughout this season because there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and not because Anthony Richardson's a bust and not because Anthony Richardson's going to be great, but just because he's 22. Okay, like I'm 24, and I meet with my boss every Wednesday, and we go over my shows and my monologues and my interviews with the goal of, helping me improve, helping me get better. And that needs to happen for me because I'm 24 years old. That's it. And it's the exact same thing with Anthony Richardson. And it's part of why, I'm very excited to see how he looks this year because he's had a full season of being able to sit in these quarterback rooms and ask questions and hopefully learn some things before going out onto the field full time and hopefully playing a full season, right? This is a guy who, again, hasn't played a ton of quarterback, and that needs to be remembered when he makes mistakes this year, okay? I know that you don't want him to make any mistakes. I don't want him to make any mistakes, but it's going to happen. Okay, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs made a ton of mistakes last year on the offensive side of the football. They were 28th in turnover margin last year. Because Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, the best offense in the NFL, coached by the best coach in the NFL, Andy Reid, made mistakes. Okay, so if Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, coached by the best coach in the NFL, made mistakes last year, then it's going to happen to Anthony Richardson this year. Josh Allen made or makes mistakes. Now, he's slowly gotten better, right? Early in his career, he made more than he does now. Right? Because that's what happens. The more you do something and the more that you mature in a position, the better you get. Same thing for, Lamar Jackson. Those are arguably the three best quarterbacks in the NFL. They all make mistakes. Tom Brady threw over 200 interceptions in his career. He threw interceptions in Super Bowls. Okay, mistakes happen from quarterbacks, but they especially happen for young quarterbacks. And Anthony Richardson is incredibly young for a starting NFL quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, out. He's out for the year. Drake May, probably going to be the starter for the New England Patriots since Jacoby Brissett hurt his shoulder in the last preseason game. Drake May is going to be the youngest starting quarterback in the NFL. Do you know who the second youngest starting quarterback in the NFL is going to be? Anthony Richardson. Okay, this kid, because that's what he is incredibly young. He is going to make mistakes this year. Okay? We just have to hope that they don't come at the wrong times. Okay? And here's the other thing. Chris Ballard's got a long leash. There's no way he would have drafted a project, because that's what Anthony Richardson is. There's no way he would have drafted a project like Anthony Richardson unless he knew he had some leash. Okay? The Colts may not make the playoffs this year. The more I look at the roster, the more I think about it. This is not an official prediction. I still have time to change my mind. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't make the playoffs. But the thing that we need to see this year is exactly what Shane Steichen said in that clip that I played, a few minutes ago. We need to see steady improvement from Anthony Richardson every single week. Okay, that is the number one thing that I want to see from the Colts this year. I want to see Anthony Richardson look more and more like the franchise quarterback that we all hope that he is as the season progresses. Okay, Kirk Herbstreit seems to really like this Colts roster. He thinks it's a playoff roster outside of, Anthony Richardson, depending, and that he's just saying that because he doesn't know how good Richardson's going to be. So, he's got tools around him to develop and be better, right? And apparently this offensive line is going to be amazing. Ryan Kelley made that pretty clear yesterday during Colts Media Day. I've got that audio for you when we come back here in 4 minutes.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Football games Thursday night this week. College football, North Dakota State, Colorado. I think everyone's eyes are going to be pinned to that. If you want winning college football bets, my guy on Twitter at ZG the Grapevine has all of them. He's going to join me on Thursday this week. That's the plan, to go over a bunch of winning bets because, like I said, college football games start this Thursday night, and then obviously we have more over the weekend. But this is Colts City. This is an NFL town, so we have to talk about the Indianapolis Colts. And they had media days yesterday, which the Colts love media days because the Colts just love to run their mouths. Okay, it's usually nothing, that they, should say. It's just, oh man, it's so frustrating. And I'm not articulating this well because it genuinely bothers me. Ryan Kelley, Colts starting center, wants a new deal. Colts aren't giving it to him yet. They should, because I like Ryan Kelley. I think he's a pretty good player. And, there's been a lot of talk this offseason about this Colts offensive line. It's supposed to be one of the, the better ones in the NFL. This is something that Chris Ballard really hangs his hat on. And Ryan Kelley, Colts starting center, went to the podium yesterday. And he was asked about, cut day and, what's it like working with some of these undrafted guys who, were, fighting for their NFL lives and yada, yada, yada. And he was asked about a specific player, but he says something really interesting in the middle of this quote about this, undrafted offensive lineman. Check this out from Ryan Kelley.
Yeah, small town Kentucky kid, goes and plays at Marshall, undrafted, small signing bonus, comes in, to a very veteran established offensive line with, I told them people at the luncheon, I think this is the most talented our offensive line's been, 15 guys total. Obviously not going to be able to keep 15, but I thought Tucker, just from day one, tough guy, kind of reminds me a little bit of Matt Slauson. Probably a little more talented, but I love Slaw to death. He was in year 10 by the time we got to him. You know what I mean? So, Slauson also broke his neck and sternum in one game and kept playing. So he was tough as nails too. But the long story short, Tuck did such a great job of being like a great accountable guy in the room. He brought some character, obviously got a little Kentucky twang to him. So, he became a fan favorite pretty quickly. But I think what he showed in the last couple of games is how versatile he can be. Tony's going to stress those guys that are bubble to backups, right? You can't have 10 guys dressing on Sunday, so you got to be able to play positions on both sides, center, tackle. I think he's done a great job of just transitioning, playing hard, being accountable for his team and getting better. And that's all you can ask for.
Did you hear the part where he said that, that he thinks that this is the most talented Colts offensive line he's been a part of? 15 deep, obviously. Obviously, they're not going to be able to keep all 15, as he noted there in that quote. Look, man, this offensive line better be awesome. It better be awesome. I'm going to talk to Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts at the top of the hour, 11 o'clock, about this Colts offensive line because expectations for this Colts offensive line are pretty heavy. Okay? And, I don't really know how to feel about it. I'll be honest with you. Because 2 years ago, the offensive line was terrible, right? And it's kind of the same. It is the same group of guys, right? It's been the same group of guys for 3 years in a row now in terms of the starters. And, 2 years ago, that offensive line was atrociously bad. And when I look at the roster and I look at the age stuff, like, he should be fine. Like, the Colts, offensive line, like, they're not incredibly old. Ryan Kelley is the only player on this Colts starting offensive line that's in his 30s, right? So these guys, for the most part, outside of Ryan Kelley, like, they are in their primes. A lot of 26, a couple of 28s in there. So from a prime age standpoint, like, the Colts offensive line should be good, right? And then, I hear Ryan Kelley, who seems like a no-nonsense kind of guy, as most linemen are. He's talking about how this is the most talented offensive line he's been a part of. He's been a part of this Colts organization for 9 years now, right? Like, that should point to the Colts not being average. Like, that to me tells me that this Colts offensive line should be dominant. And if someone gets hurt, because that's bound to happen, okay? Every NFL team goes through stretches where they have injuries. But even if someone gets hurt now, it's like, this is the most talented offensive line room you've been a part of, then they shouldn't miss a beat if someone gets hurt. And I don't know why he'd say this. I really don't. I think all it does is raise the expectations that everyone already has, right? But with that being said, like, it is an encouraging thing. It's nice to know that Anthony Richardson should be protected when he's in the pocket. It's nice to know that Jonathan Taylor should be running behind what is supposedly an incredibly talented offensive line. But once again, Ryan Kelley doesn't seem like the type of guy to just run his mouth. He seems like he thinks through the things that he's going to say. And I hope he's right. I hope this offensive line room is incredibly talented, because if the Colts want to have any sort of success this year, they have to keep Anthony Richardson upright, and they have to create running room for Jonathan Taylor. Everything starts up front for this team, just like every other team in the NFL. For the Indiana Fever, however, everything starts with Caitlin Clark, who was awesome last night despite, turning her left ankle. They beat the Atlanta Dream, which is a big win because the Fever now hold the tiebreaker over the Atlanta Dream. Okay, they've won 14 games now. That's a big milestone considering Fever haven't won 14 games in forever. Okay, so currently in terms of playoffs and, seeding and all those things, the Indiana Fever now hold the tiebreaker over the Atlanta Dream. Coming up this Friday, they play the Chicago Sky. And if they win, then they'll hold the tiebreaker over them as well for playoff seeding. And this is important because when you look at the WNBA standings right now, the Fever are 7th, followed by the Chicago Sky in 8th, followed by the Atlanta Dream in 9th, right? So they're all three kind of right there, adjusting and jostling for these last two playoff spots, right? So having the tiebreaker in these games is incredibly important, and the Fever wouldn't have the tiebreaker over the Atlanta Dream if it wasn't for Kelsey Mitchell, she's been awesome. I love watching her play basketball. She's so good. She's so incredibly good on the offensive end. She can just score, man. Like, the assist numbers, not great, but I don't care because she can go get a bucket whenever you need it, man. Right? She can create space off the dribble. She plays at just a completely different speed from everyone else. If you're an NBA fan and you've watched De'Aaron Fox play, like the way Kelsey Mitchell plays is reminiscent of De'Aaron Fox because she's, left-handed and just plays at this breakneck speed that no one else seems to be able to keep up with, right? And she can handle the basketball and she can shoot it and all those things. She led the way for the Indiana Fever last night with 29 points. She also had 7 rebounds, right? She plays, once again, with great speed. She can really shoot it. She didn't shoot it well last night. 3 of 10 from 3, but she finished around the rim at a high level. I mean, she's just an absolute lightning bolt whenever she's on the floor. And I love when she has these big rebounding games because she can grab it and she can go. When this Indiana Fever team plays fast, right, which, is made a little bit easier when Kelsey Mitchell grabs 7 rebounds and Caitlin Clark grabs 7 rebounds like she did last night, they're just really tough to handle in transition because Caitlin Clark's the best WNBA point guard in the open floor. I mean, just her ability to find cutters and make these beautiful passes, whether, over the top or these great bounce passes. I mean, that is where this Indiana Fever team is at their best, and we saw them get out and run a fairly decent amount last night. And, as I said, the Fever run, they're fun to watch, and Caitlin Clark is the reason for that. And she was great once again last night, even though she rolled her ankle in the second quarter. She had 19 points. She shot the crap out of the ball, 4 of 9 from 3. She also had 7 rebounds and 7 assists. Just continuing to do everything for this Indiana Fever team. And if you watched the game last night and you somehow, some way walked away and you're like, who's better? Angel Reese. Then you're blind or something insane like that. Or you're just a hater. That's really probably what it is. But she continues to be the engine that this team runs on. And that is impressive for any rookie in any league, in any sport. It's the first time since, actually, no, that's probably hyperbole. But what Caitlin Clark has done this year is it is reminiscent of LeBron James in his rookie year. When LeBron James showed up at the NBA and he was drafted number 1 overall, there were all of these expectations on him. Okay, big, fast, athletic. He's going to take the league by storm. He's the next guy. He's the next face. He showed up in the NBA at the age of 18, and what was he? He was the next guy. He was the next face. Okay, expectations for him were set so incredibly high, and he was able to reach them. And it's been the exact same thing with Caitlin Clark this year. She comes into the WNBA with these incredibly high expectations. Okay, of she's gonna take the WNBA to new heights, and not only has she done that, but she's played fantastically on top of everything else. Okay, like she's been nothing short of spectacular. And the whole comparison of her and Angel Reese being like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird bothers me because like Magic Johnson and Larry Bird each brought like an equal amount of attention, right? Like just as many, like the people that were watching to see Magic Johnson, like there were just as many of those people as there were people watching to see Larry Bird. And that just hasn't been the case with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. People are simply watching to watch Caitlin Clark because let's be honest, no one cares to watch a power forward like Angel Reese not make layups. People want to watch Caitlin Clark and everything she did in college, from the passing to the shooting, she has transferred it over to the WNBA. And she's been just incredible. And she was incredible once again last night. She may not have led the Fever in scoring, but she was undoubtedly the best player on that team. And she was undoubtedly the engine that allowed that team to go. And while I've went on and on about Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Aaliyah Boston, who had another double-double last night. 14 points and 11 rebounds. Real quick before I move on to Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark now holds the record for most 15.5 assist games in NBA history. So there's another record. She also tied the rookie 3-point record with 10 games to go. Just by the time her career is over, every record is just going to be held by Caitlin Clark. It's honestly incredible. But Aaliyah Boston, once again, solid last night, 14 points, 11 rebounds, finished well, rebounded well. Look, when Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and Kelsey Mitchell, all three perform at the offensive end, you're not slowing down this Indiana Fever team. Okay? Like they're going to be incredibly tough to stop. Aaliyah Boston, really good in the half court, great in the pick and roll and all those things. Caitlin Clark has made her better with her passing, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. And when all three of them play well, like they're tough to beat. I thought they defended well too, like holding the team to 79 points. That's pretty good for this young Fever team, right? And a lot of that, is credit given to Lexi Hull, right? Who, when she's on the floor, she's expected to hit threes and play defense. She only scored 2 points, only took 3 shots, but I thought that she defended well and really made an impact on the defensive end of the floor, which helped this Fever team win. That's why she played 30 minutes last night, is because she defended well. Top of the hour, Zach Hicks. He's set to join me. We're going to talk a little Indianapolis Colts, wrapping up the preseason. Looking forward to the regular season. Next segment, though, when we come back, Top 10 Tuesday. Love Top 10 Tuesday. Usually Top 10 Tuesdays are a little bit more serious, but I've got a fantasy football draft tomorrow night, and I need a little help picking a team name. So when we come back here in 4 minutes, I've got Top 10 Tuesday Fantasy Football Team Name Edition here in 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Takes, entertainment, stories. That's what the show is about. Top 10 Tuesday. Love Top 10 Tuesday. It's so much fun. Lists are fun. So is fantasy football. Fantasy football draft tomorrow night. Can't wait for that. But before I draft anybody, I have to figure out what to name my fantasy team. And I love doing fantasy football team names. I think they're fun. I remember the first year I ever had a fantasy team, I was like 11. Name my team Turn Your Head and Coughlin. That would always be my favorite because it was my first one. I think the second year that I did a fantasy team, my fantasy team name was Romo Witten His Pants. Love the puns. Love, using player names as a way to name my team. So this is my top 10 Tuesday fantasy football team names. If you want to tweet at me on Twitter @__ Jonathan Smith and tell me which one you like. I'm probably going to go with one of these 10 as my team name. We'll kind of wait and see. If I draft a player whose name inspired these team names, then I'll probably end up rolling with that one. But your opinion on this would be much appreciated. Let's start with some tame ones. So the first one I wrote down here, the greatest show on paper. Makes sense because, it's fantasy football. These names are basically these teams are essentially on sheets of paper. It's all offense. Like you draft a defense, sure, but it's really all about the offense. So the greatest show on paper makes an appearance on this top 10 fantasy football team names. Number 2 is Show Me Your TDs. Like TDS, show me your TDs. Hopefully I don't have to explain that one much further. That one always makes me smile. Yeah, it makes the 12-year-old boy inside of me laugh. And if you're a dude, it probably makes you smile a little bit too. Show Me Your TDs comes in on this list as well for my top 10 Tuesday fantasy football team names. Number 3 on the list is No Punt Intended. Like no pun intended, right? I like puns. So, I had to slide that one in there. Next is Studs and Duds. That one's fine. I like the rhyming of it. This next one, though, this one is undoubtedly a contender. I love movies. I go to the movies whenever I can. I'm hoping to go again here soon to catch a couple more flicks. So Django Unchained is one of it's a better movie. It's a good movie. I like Django Unchained. It's really good. It's entertaining. It's awesome. So in honor of that movie, I came up with Django A-Chained, like A-Chain from the Miami Dolphins, the running back. So Django A-Chained, I really like that one. I think that one's clever. Next, Sam Laporta, one of the better tight ends in the NFL, even though he was, I believe, only a rookie last year. So in honor of him and the great season he had last year, I came up with the fantasy football team name of Laporta Potty. I like that one too. That one's fun. Okay. Like I said, all of these just make the 12-year-old boy inside of me smile. Don't know why. They just do. And it's great. I love it. So that's number, I believe, 6 on the list. The next one on the list, in honor of CeeDee Lamb, getting a much-deserved contract, right? Because, he got the big extension yesterday. He's now the second highest paid NFL player, and he's the second highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. Okay, the dude is making a ton of money. And I was like, you know what? Like, in honor of CeeDee Lamb getting this huge contract, I have to figure out some sort of a fantasy team name for him. So I came up with CeeDee's Nuts. I'm sorry. I love these way too much. So CeeDee's Nuts is next on the list. I've got 3 left. Once again, feel free to tweet at me @__ Jonathan Smith if you would like to suggest a fantasy football team name. Throw them my way. If you like any of these, let me know as well. You can also head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, subscribe, join the chat, and you can let me know which one of these you like as well. Next, Joe Buck is, I wouldn't call him the voice of the NFL, but I think he's a really good announcer. I like it when he calls games. I know that not everybody does, but I like him. I think he and Troy Aikman do a good job. They're probably my favorite duo that calls NFL games. Obviously, they do the Monday Night Football game. So, in honor of Joe Buck, my next NFL fantasy team name is Joe Buck Yourself. I like that one. Next, probably my favorite one. This is my favorite one. So Zach Ertz has been in the NFL for a long time. He playing for the Commanders this year. I know, Cliff Kingsbury just can't do it without his guy Zach Ertz. Loves that guy. So in honor of Zach Ertz figuring out a way to stick around in the NFL for a little bit longer, my next fantasy team name is My Balzac Ertz. I love these way too much. Like I said, I love these way too much. Okay. This is what happens when you put a 24-year-old on the radio. He says stupid things like this. Last one, I wanted a Colts themed one. And, I got to be honest. I really struggled to come up with like a funny Colts themed one. There isn't really anything good with Richardson. I could have gone like tailor made for Jonathan Taylor, but that's boring. That's stupid. That's what that is. So I landed on Downs with the sickness after our guy Josh Downs, because we know Colts players, they're going to miss a lot of games this year because that's just what seems to happen. So that is my Top 10 Tuesday, 10 fantasy football team names that I may or may not name my fantasy football team this year. I probably will. I really like my Balzac Ertz. That's probably my favorite one on the list. So that is Top 10 Tuesday. Once again, if you have any other recommendations for fantasy football team names, feel free to drop them in the YouTube chat. I know there have been a couple in here that are pretty good. Big League Ballard's main, Ertz so good. Ertz weed bag. Jeez. Nachos with Ballard. All sorts of good stuff coming in the YouTube chat, which you can be part of. Indie Sports Ticket over there on YouTube. You can also tweet some of these fantasy names at me as well. Moving on to Zach Edey. I didn't think I'd be talking about Zach Edey, 11 days or whatever it is from the start of the NFL football season, but here we are, not 9 days away. Excuse me. Let me get that countdown right. September 5th. Zach Edey has been projected by NBA coaches, executives, and scouts to be the rookie of the year this year. So ESPN, they'll do these occasional articles where they send surveys out to different NFL executives, general managers, and scouts. And, they ask, who's going to be the MVP? Who do you think is going to win the title this year? All those different things. And obviously they're all anonymous. And so they ask the question, who do you think is going to win rookie of the year this year? And NBA scouts, GMs, and executives, they all voted for Zach Edey, which really surprised me because when we look at rookies of the year, it's not a win-based award, and I do think that Zach Edey and the Memphis Grizzlies are going to win a fairly decent amount of games, but that won't help him at all in terms of the voting. It's strictly based off of performance. And so because of that, I thought it was going to be Reed Sheppard. I thought that was the guy that the coaches, general managers, and executives voted on. I thought for sure that would be the guy that they picked, especially after the summer league, where it's evident that he's going to shoot the crap out of the ball at a minimum. Okay, and hopefully Houston puts the ball in his hands a lot, because I think that if they do, then he will be the rookie of the year. But playing on a team with Alperen Sengun, who kind of needs the ball to be the best version of Sengun, and you got Jalen Green as well, who needs the ball to be the best version of Jalen Green, and you got a guy like Reed Sheppard who can flourish off the ball because of his shooting ability. I don't know if he's going to have the ball enough, and I'm assuming that's why they picked for Zach Edey to be the rookie of the year, because that they weren't going to pick a French guy, because those French guys are terrible, couldn't even play for the national team. And to me, it's so interesting because, like, Zach Edey's not going to get post touches. Like, that's not going to happen. Okay, the Memphis Grizzlies are not going to stop their offense and be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go back to 1980s basketball. Zach Edey, get your butt on the block. We want to see some hook shots. Not going to happen. Okay, it's going to be a lot of, hey, Zach, come up here. Set a ball screen for John Morant. And we're going to run a lot of screen and roll. And you're going to set a lot of screens for Desmond Bain and Luke Kennard and these other shooters playing for, the Memphis Grizzlies. So for me, this really kind of tells me that the NBA has big expectations for John Morant more than what they have for Zach Edey, because Zach Edey's success is going to be directly tied to John Morant and his ability to find Zach Edey underneath and to pass him the basketball. So thought that was interesting, and I thought I would bring it to your attention. Next, you know me, big on paying guys early in the NFL. The earlier you pay someone, the better off you're going to be. And when Michael Pittman Jr. signed his new deal with the Indianapolis Colts back in March, he was the 6th highest paid receiver in the NFL. Since then, he has now dropped, and he is the 14th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Say what you want about Chris Ballard, but it was smart of him to sign Michael Pittman to an extension early. Okay, it saved the Colts money, so they can now continue to brag about cap space that they don't spend on anyone, right? It's great. Great. Just more cap space. We absolutely love it. And, I'm going to kind of get off track here. Like, Cincinnati, I don't know why they haven't paid Jamar Chase yet, because, like, the longer you wait, the more money you have to fork up. Like, that is evident based off of how we've seen free agency behave over these past couple of years. Like no matter what the Bengals do, they have to pay Jamar Chase. It has to happen. Okay, there's no way that they're letting that guy get out of their building. So why not pay him early? That is clearly the best way to operate when it comes to extending guys. Pay guys early. That way you save a little bit of money. Okay, like that's what the Colts did. And, for them saving money, it's not, the most important thing in the world, because they already have a bunch of cap space that they aren't going to spend anyway. So who really cares if they save money or not? But when it comes to these other teams that actually want to spend money and actually want to win games, pay guys quickly. Like the Dallas Cowboys made a mistake. Like, they should have paid Dak Prescott last year. They should have paid Micah Parsons earlier. They should have paid CeeDee Lamb earlier, and they didn't. And NFL teams, dysfunctional NFL teams, continue to do this. They continue to wait to pay guys, and it never makes any sense. So even if you don't like Chris Ballard, he did something smart in signing and extending Michael Pittman Jr. early, as opposed to waiting and paying him too much money. Last thing here before we head to break, joining me on the other side of the break, top of the hour, 11 o'clock, Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. We're talking Colts, right? I haven't talked to him since, the Colts game last Thursday against the Cincinnati Bengals. Going to get his thoughts on Richardson. We'll talk about the NFL season a little bit as well. So that's going to be fun. Can't wait for that. We are not that far from the start of NFL football. But while NFL football hasn't quite started yet, college football has. And I don't know what's going on. I guess that this week, the soft college football coaches wanted to show up. Deion Sanders yesterday bans a reporter from asking him questions because he called him names. That's incredibly soft. And then Dabo Swinney isn't taking phone calls on his radio show anymore, because last year Dabo Swinney got a phone call, was asked if he was still worth his $11 million salary despite being 4-4. It's a valid question. Okay, and it's one of my, look, when you sign up to be a head football coach at any level, high school, college, NFL, whatever, you sign up to be scrutinized unless you win. Even though Nick Saban won games at Alabama, and there are still people out there who didn't like him whenever they lost, okay? That's just what this job is. Okay, so if you don't want to be, scrutinized or yelled at or made fun of or called names or anything like that, then don't coach football. Seriously, go buy, an ice cream truck and sell ice cream if you don't want to be yelled at, right? I've never seen an ice cream truck guy get yelled at, because who's going to yell at a guy who gives you ice cream? Not me. I'm definitely not going to do that. But seriously, like what's up with these soft college football coaches? Like, when you signed the dotted line to be paid a lot of money, you agreed to be scrutinized. Whether that's right, whether that's wrong, I don't know. But that's the reality that we live in. So come on, Dabo Sweeney. Take callers. Take callers, man. It's really not that difficult. 5 minutes away, Zach Hicks, Locked On Colts, joining me as he does every Tuesday. Cannot wait to talk to him about the Colts. It's always a fun, pleasant conversation that's coming your way here in 5 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks for tuning in. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, which means Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is joining me. Zach, what's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much. Just chilling here. My dog is harassing me because I'm on the phone. He thinks I'm talking to my wife. So fun times right here.
There you go. So off the air, you mentioned that you were in a fantasy league, and I have to ask you, what is your fantasy team's name? Because I did a thing earlier where I listed off some of my favorites. So I have some suggestions if you need some.
Okay. I might need some of your suggestions because I have not been original for years. When I was younger, I used to come up with some really great ones. I found some good ones online back then too. I purposely went out of my way. I remember to draft Zach Ertz and Tyler Eifert to do that. It Ertz when I furt or whatever. That one was one of my favorite. Yeah, I found that one online or whatever. I purposely had to do that one. But no, I've been going with the one for years that's like just like future runner up is what I go with or whatever. Yeah. You know, like self-deprecating, but also like I'm at least going to get my refund in the end. So like, you know, or however your guys' leagues do it. I know some people like to give all the money to the winner. That's how I prefer to do it. But the league I'm in, like to give the runner-up guy their refund. So I always like do future runner-up or like gonna get my refund or something like that. But what are some good ones? You got to give me some good ones here.
Show me your TDs.
Okay.
I like that one. That, you know, depending on how vulgar you want to be, you may not want to go with that one.
Right.
If you're a big movie guy, I like Django A-Chained. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not. That one's clever.
If A-Chain was on any of my teams, I'm just terrified of him this year, though. But if you were on any of my teams, for sure.
He's feast or famine. Like he's either going to be awesome or he's going to be terrible. There's no in between.
I don't have the guts. I really don't have the guts for it. I draft guys who I know are going to get the ball like 40 times a game, and I don't care like if they're good at all. Like I'm terrified of the A-Chain types, or it's like 5 times a game. They might go for 300 yards on those 5 touches, but like you never know with those guys.
That's exactly right. And you mentioned Zach Ertz, so I like this one. This one is my ball Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
That one's fine. And then Laporta Potty, I didn't mind. I thought that one was kind of funny. And then CD's nuts in honor of CD Lamb's contract from yesterday. So there's a few, but I had one Colts one. I got to be honest, coming up with a clever Colts related fantasy name is kind of tough.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, anyway, speaking of the Colts, that's what you're on to talk about. Not fantasy. Sorry. I got sidetracked there. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. So we haven't talked since the preseason game from last Thursday, right?
Yeah. It was right after we talked last week.
Okay. So just give me kind of your blanket kind of ideas. Obviously, Anthony Richardson looked great early. After that, it wasn't super great. What'd you kind of think about him in the offense?
Yeah, definitely a roller coaster, I think is the best way to describe it. And, you know, there's so many layers to this where the Colts aren't calling their typical offense. You know, they're trying to keep Richardson in the pocket and not having him move around too much, not using his legs like you would in the regular season. They're also going against backup defenders. So there's like pluses and minuses to every single thing that's going on here. But I thought the first drive, just fantastic all around from the receivers, the offensive line. Richardson looked decisive, had a couple really great highlight plays on that first drive. The first throw to Alec Pierce on the crosser was awesome. The hot read to Alec Pierce on that 3rd and long against the blitz, really great recognition from Richardson. And then obviously the touchdown pass, little jump throw over the middle to Edey Mitchell against the blitz again. Really, really good job against the blitz. And you're like, you know, I was almost like, oh my gosh, just get him out of the game now. We're feeling great right now. This is a perfect showing. You don't need to do any more. But after the fact, it's probably even better that he played more because you got to see some of that, you know, the ebbs and flows of what he's going to bring this year in terms of the, you know, what he needs to work on, what can be better and stuff. When it comes to like the interception and the miss to Edey Mitchell, I think on that 3rd and long, this is not the one where he sailed it over his head. The one where it was like low at his feet.
Yeah.
Those ones you can kind of live with because they're just kind of miscommunications. You know, like the Kylan Granson pick six, like obviously pick sixes are the worst thing you could throw in any game. But like that was just two guys on the wrong page. You're not really game planning for a preseason defense. So when they buzz that safety down to the hook, you're like, oh gosh, like how do we read this? It's not how a team typically plays this. So it was just the two guys reading it wrong. I'm not really concerned about that. The only two plays that really brought concern for me about Richardson were the fumble. When he got hit from behind, you just got to keep two hands on the ball. You got to have the awareness when you're moving out of the pocket to you're aware of your surroundings. You just can't have that kind of play happen. And then obviously the miss over Edey Mitchell's head on the other third down where Mitchell's wide open. He's going to keep running. And that's going to be an issue we're going to see this year with Richardson, where his eyes and his head, I think he's a really good processor. I think he sees the field really well. I just don't think he moves his feet with his eyes sometimes because he's such a gifted upper body thrower. He kind of gets a little, I don't want to say lazy, but he gets a little nonchalant with his lower body mechanics, and he moves his eyes before he moves his feet. And you saw on that play, he didn't set his feet to the throw, sailed it over Mitchell's head, and that cost, a good 20, 30-yard gain on the third down. So I think there were some pluses and minuses. I mean, the throw to Kylan Granson on the seam shot when he was in the middle of his brutal stretch or whatever, he whipped out that throw, and it's like, oh, cool, now we can see the kind of star that he could be. There's maybe like 3 or 4 quarterbacks in football that can make that throw. So, I think some people are getting a little too harsh on that outing. Some people are maybe a little too positive. Overall, you kind of got a little taste of what the Richardson experience is going to be this year, where there was going to be some really frustrating moments with him because of the lower half mechanics, because of miscommunications, because of all these things. But what he can do as a player, the jump pass in the red zone on touchdown to Mitchell, the seam shot to Kylan Granson, and we haven't even talked about the rushing game because they didn't really do much of it. Like all of those things are going to be so exciting that you kind of have to live with the roller coaster this year. But yeah, it might be brutal for the first half of the season in terms of that volatility of play. But I do think you saw enough flashes in this, enough flashes last year and last preseason and stuff to still be excited about what Richardson can bring to this team.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I feel the same way. It's going to be up and down, and I can just I know what I'm going to be saying all year long to my listeners that don't like Anthony Richardson. It's going to be that he's the second youngest starting quarterback in the NFL. If he'd been drafted this year, he'd have been younger than every quarterback taken except for Drake May and McCarthy. And it's like this dude's incredibly young. He's incredibly raw. 23 starts in high school, college, and the NFL so far. It's like he hasn't played a ton of quarterback. But the thing that I appreciated and I thought is something that's transferable from preseason to the regular season, I thought every decision that he made was good. Like there was never a time where I was like, I don't like that he tried to fit the ball in that window. I felt like he just kind of took what was there. And I think that's one of the big things for these big athletic, big armed quarterbacks to kind of maneuver around is just knowing that like, it's okay if I hit, a single on 2nd and 6.
Yeah. I think a very weird misconception about Richardson is like, this is a guy who can read the field. This is a guy who has good eyes, has a good head on his shoulders when it comes to understanding what's in front of him. Like he's never been someone to throw these like stupid like he'll have some bad decisions, like the backwards pass against Tennessee last year, the throwing the ball out of bounds with his left hand last year in Houston. Like when he's getting hit, yes, sometimes he will make some terrifying decisions, but for the most part, when it comes to him being in the pocket, sitting back there and reading a defense, this is not a dumb quarterback. Like this is not a situation where we're looking at a guy saying he can't read a defense, because he can. It's just mechanically it's sometimes not there because he trusts his arm talent a little too much. And we've seen this with guys like Josh Allen. I know that's obviously the exception to every rule is the Josh Allen development tree, but this is what we saw from Josh Allen when Allen came in the league, where it's like this guy can read a football field and understands where the ball needs to go. It's just he's not perfectly there yet and getting his mechanics in tune and getting everything where it needs to be. But I don't have too many concerns about Richardson's decision making whatsoever. Like if anything, he gets a little too confident with his like where guys need to be So he throws to these spots sometimes where it's like, okay, guy's going to be here, and the receiver reads it differently, and that's what causes some of these, incompletions, like the Kylan Granson pick six, where it's like, I'm expecting Granson to sit. I'm going to anticipate. I'm going to drive it into where he's going to be sitting in front of that safety, and Granson breaks outside, and it leads to a horrible pick. It's like, that's not a guy who can't read a defense. It's just guys being off of the same page on there. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think, I don't want to get too crazy with this, but I do think sometimes people label like athletic quarterbacks wrong and say like, that because this guy's a runner, because this guy's athletic, he can't read a defense. And, it's true for some of these guys, but I don't think that applies to Richardson. I really think he can read a defense, understand where the ball needs to go. It's just sometimes the mechanics are not there, which leads to some misses.
Yeah, that's very much how I kind of feel about him, just having watched him even going back to last year. And you mentioned it earlier, talking about how we didn't get to see the quarterback run game at all in the preseason, and that's obviously going to be an important thing for the Colts. And I've been thinking about Richardson, and what do you feel like the sweet spot is for Anthony Richardson in terms of passing attempts and rushing attempts? I'm thinking, like, if he's throwing the ball more than 25 times a game, I don't really like that. I kind of like the idea of 20 to 25 passes and 8 to 12 rushes a game for Richardson. What do you think kind of that sweet spot is for him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously game flow will factor in a lot of these. Like if the Colts defense is just getting bludgeoned early in a game, you're going to be in more of a throwing mindset because you just have to throw the ball nowadays to keep up with some of these high-flying offenses. But I think if you have a neutral game flow or a positive game flow, kind of like what you said, like 20, 25 passes, lean on Taylor. I mean, Jonathan Taylor might lead the NFL in rushing carries in carries this year. The Colts are going to feed him, and I don't envision them going to backups too often in these games, even just to give him like a couple snap breathers. I think he's going to play a ton of snaps and get the ball a lot. But yeah, I'm with you on that. When it comes to his rushing attempts, I think, again, game plan heavy. I don't think there needs to be too many where he carries it. It's just, it could be 5, 6, 7 carries a game for him. But as long as you're keeping that threat of him taking the ball out from Richardson or from Taylor and running, that's all that really matters, because the threat of a quarterback running is sometimes more dangerous than the quarterback actually running himself. And Shane Steichen does a great job too with these RPO designs, RPR designs, which are essentially triple options, where you can either run the ball at the running back, pull it and pass it, or run it with the quarterback when he's already rolling out. So there's ways to kind of exploit a defense that way. So yeah, I think there'll be plenty of ways where they can, use Richardson's natural ability as a runner, not only to get production for him, but also to have that threat on defense. But yeah, I mean, the sweet spot's probably around like 40 plays a game where he's directly impacting it, either through throwing or through running the ball himself, and then leaning on Taylor for those other 20, 25, whatever it's going to be, offensive snaps that you have out there.
Yeah, 40. That seems like a good number. That's 2/3 of the plays roughly. I think most offenses run around 65. So that sounds great to me.
60-ish or so. Yeah.
Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. So outside of Richardson, which player for the Colts impressed you the most during the preseason, and why is it Bean?
It was Jason Bean, man. Look,
was
man,
really good.
I have loved Jason Bean for years, just being a fan of that Kansas offense in college. And I would tune into a couple of their games, and they have a lot of good players on that offense. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think his name's Leal, the running back, or Neal, the running back.
Yeah.
Fantastic player. The other quarterback who started a lot of games, Daniels, is really good too. Chris Ballard's kid is eventually going to get a shot to start at quarterback here in the next 2 years. Like, they have a lot of talent on that offense and a great offensive coaching staff. But, when I watched Jason Bean, you could see the flashes of like this fantastic athlete with a live arm and a little bit of a playmaking trait, but he would just lose his mind out there sometimes. And I never thought he could be like an NFL quarterback, but I thought he was fun. And when the Colts signed him, I was like, cool, a QB/wide receiver. Like, you could have some fun with him in the preseason. But me and the Colts and probably everyone else who even knew who Jason Bean was expected him to get moved to wide receiver. Like, that, it made more sense. Like, he was just a really great natural athlete, but probably not there as a passer. But the Colts never moved him to receiver because he was showing out at quarterback. And when you watch the preseason, you watch if you were at some of the training camps, you saw some of the snaps he was getting in training camp, you could see the arm a little bit. And this guy really showed out. So I don't know how it's going to work out now. I know they revoked the addendum to the third quarterback rule. So it's likely that Sam Ehlinger is going to make the Colts roster. So they still want to have, a quarterback on the practice squad on top of that. Jason Bean is absolutely perfect for it. I mean, he came into camp as the fifth quarterback behind Slovis and Ehlinger, and he surpassed, Slovis by preseason game 2. And I don't think he ever really pushed Ehlinger, but I think if it weren't for someone like Ehlinger who was so entrenched as that third quarterback, I think he could have really pushed for that third spot.
Yeah, Warren Sharp put out a number or several numbers, and Jason Bean was, by all these numbers, like the best quarterback in the preseason. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, Zach Hicks is going to love that because he loves this guy.
Yeah.
And look, he was really impressive, like very athletic. Like you can see why, like it's quarterback / receiver. Like that's what he was listed at, because like you said, like he's this incredible athlete, but I thought he threw the ball really well, and it was impressive. And I hope he at least winds up on the practice squad, because he seems like a guy that if the absolute worst thing happens and, Richardson, Flacco, and Ehlinger all go down, like he seems like a guy who can come in and manage the offense and maybe have a little bit of magic because of his, ability to just be an athlete. So I thought he was really good. Last question for you, Zach, and I will let you go. Once again, joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Looking around the division, I had a guy on from Nashville yesterday, and we were just talking about the AFC South as a whole. Which team scares you the least, and which team scares you the most?
I think realistically, you have to say the Texans scare you the most, just because, look, at the end of the day, quarterback play matters so much. And I do think Trevor Lawrence, to a degree, is a bit underrated, but CJ Stroud, his rookie season was fantastic. Now, I'm curious to see how he carries that into year 2, because a lot of his production that carried his rookie season was deep ball efficiency, which has a tendency to fall off. So he needs to improve a little bit in the underneath game, but there's no reason to think he doesn't. So I think he's going to be great this year. The Texans team is really kind of going for it with their young quarterback. So they're obviously the biggest threat. I mean, they won the division last year. And for the team that scares me the least, I think this division is fascinating because, like, the answer is probably the Titans, because of just they weren't good last year. They're having the new coaching change. They're bringing in a lot of outside names, and you don't know how well that's going to mesh together. But, they're kind of like the Colts, where they're such a wild card with how they could finish. You could tell me they would win 10 games this year, and I'd be like, all right. I mean, it makes sense. They have a fine roster. They have a young quarterback who could take that leap. Or you could tell me they win 4 games this year, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. They have a young quarterback who didn't take the leap, and the older guys they brought in didn't work out. So they're kind of like the Colts, that have that really wide range of expectations, where the Colts could sweep them this year. The Titans could sweep the Colts. They're really hard teams to kind of predict, but I think you just have to go with the Titans as like the team that scares you the least at the moment because of that unpredictability. Because, I mean, look, the Colts are not beating Jacksonville in Jacksonville. It's never going to happen in my lifetime. It's never going to happen. So Jacksonville always has to be some kind of threat. And then Houston obviously went all in with Hunter and Diggs and have that young quarterback. So they have to scare you the most. But it's a fun division, man. All 4 of these teams, I think, have the potential to win it and have the potential to finish like 4th in the division, because this division could be, it could be a team like Houston runs away with it and wins like 13 or 14 games. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but they could. But also we could get one of those years where this whole division wins around 8, 9, 10 games, like each team does, because I think all 4 of these teams are really close together in the pecking order if things go right for the Colts and the Titans. So I think it's going to be a really fun year. I don't think there's going to be any really weak team in the division. I think all 4 of these teams are well coached, have fun young quarterbacks, and it's going to be a blast to see how it all shakes out.
It really is. The Titans have been so interesting this offseason, because usually when you hire a new coach and you have a new quarterback, it's like, hey, we're going to rebuild. And they were
Right.
like, no, let's go get L'Jarius Sneed and Calvin Ridley, and let's bring back DeAndre Hopkins, and let's go get Jamal Adams to play safety and Quandre Diggs to also play safety. And, like they were bringing in all these veterans. And I'm just kind of like, this doesn't do y'all kind of expect to win now? Like they're going to be, like you said, if they won 10, 11 games, I wouldn't be surprised. And if they won 4 games, I also wouldn't be surprised.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fascinating because you saw a couple of the moves coming, like the moves that offensive line, yes, totally need to do that because you couldn't even evaluate Levis behind that offensive line they had last year. But then getting Chidobe Awuzie, making the trade for Sneed, the move for Ridley, those are not typically moves that you make as a first-year head coach with a second-year quarterback. You typically want to see what your quarterback has. And maybe go what the Colts did, where it's bring back guys that you think are good, maybe make some little signings, but just kind of evaluate. But no, they're kind of going for it. And it's such a volatile process where, yes, you're actively going out trying to improve your roster, but sometimes, making these outside moves can really blow up in your face. And it could be a thing where, this turns into a 4 or 5 win team. But I think Callahan's a good coach. I mean, he finished 3rd in the Colts head coaching search years ago. I think he's a good coach. I think Levis has impressed me a little bit more than I expected. So I think they're going to be a competitive team. I just don't know how competitive if all those free agent moves actually work out for them. But they're going to be a really fun team to follow and see what the heck happens there in Tennessee.
They really are. Hopefully they suck. That's kind of my hope.
Yeah, hopefully Jacksonville wins 1 game, Tennessee wins 2, Houston wins 0, and we're just chilling at the top.
That'd be perfect. That'd be really boring for me. That would make my job actually a lot harder. So hopefully it's a nice close race and the Colts win. Zach, thanks for your time, man. You were great as always.
All right, I'll see you, buddy.
See ya. That is Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Follow him on Twitter at Zach Hicks2. You can check out all the stuff that he writes as well. Loves the Colts, does a great job covering them. Really smart guy. Yeah, pretty great. Another smart guy, Shane Steichen. He was asked about Anthony Richardson yesterday during a little Colts media session. Asked about where Richardson's gotten better. I've got that audio for you when we come back here in 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, to be followed by the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. Shane Steichen had to do some media stuff yesterday, and look, as we all know, whenever Shane Steichen goes to the podium, he's going to be asked questions about Anthony Richardson, his very young starting quarterback here in Indianapolis. And he was asked yesterday, how has Anthony Richardson improved from last year to this year? He was asked 3 questions in succession, one after another, about just different aspects of how Anthony Richardson has gotten better. And here's what Colts head coach Shane Steichen had to say.
Yeah, it's been huge. Like I said, the growth, we just want to see growth week in and week out with him and all players, you know what I mean? But he did a hell of a job on that first drive. And then, like I said, there was great, tape to teach off those next couple of drives. I mean, that miscommunication, we talked about as coaching staff, like that's on us too. Like that's on us. Like we got to teach that better, you know what I mean? And so we don't have those communication deals. So again, I'm super excited for the season. I'm super excited for him too.
Talk a lot about his legs, but what about his feet, footwork, things like that? We've seen him grow, get better at. That's awesome.
I think he's got tremendous feet, personally. He's super quick. He's obviously very twitchy in the pocket, can move, can get out of things. But his footwork, when he takes his quick 5-step drop, how fast he gets back there, how the ball jumps off his hands. I mean, the feet and your eyes all tying together. But he's made strides in that too. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
He had that, like you mentioned, that miscommunication with Granson, but like the next drive, he hits that throw to Granson, kind of that later throw in the middle. So, I mean, like you see just from his ability to kind of move on from when there are mistakes and just get to the next one.
That was a big time play. I mean, for me, pre-snap, the look they had, it was kind of a buzz safety look. And I was like, shoot, that's going to be a tight window. And he's got the arm strength to make those throws. That's what's special. And he needled that thing right through there to Granson. That was a big time throw by him for sure.
That was Shane Steichen there talking about his young quarterback, Anthony Richardson, and the improvements that he has seen throughout camp. And he opened talking about the decision-making and how that has gotten better. And that is where it all starts. Okay, there's a foundation to everything that anyone ever does. And when it comes to playing quarterback, like I would argue that decision-making is one of the most important things. If you don't make good decisions with the football, then you're not going to last very long. And hearing that that's improved is wildly important because that's where it all starts. And I think that even going back to Thursday night, we saw the good decision-making skills that Anthony Richardson possesses. Sure, he missed on some throws. He wasn't entirely accurate. But there was never a throw that he made where you sat there and you were like, he threw the ball to the wrong spot. The interception he threw, clearly a miscommunication. Okay, so the decision-making is there. The ability to sit back, look at a defense, figure out what's going on, and figure out who's open is there. He just has to get better at throwing the ball accurately, which is something that we've seen Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson do, and Jalen Hurts as well. We've seen all 3 of them accomplish that over these past 5 years or so. So accuracy is something that can improve. Decision-making as well has improved for Anthony Richardson. We just got to bring the accuracy along with it. And, we'll see if it improves or not. He said something in there about feet. I got to be honest, don't know enough about what a quarterback's feet should look like to have any comment on that. But the last thing that he mentions is he talks about this incredible throw that Anthony Richardson made down the seam, his last completion against the Cincinnati Bengals, where, like, if you see the video, I mean, it's just stupid. Okay, the ball's, like, just above the linebacker's finger, and he gets it in just before the safety comes down, and he puts it right on Granson's numbers. I mean, it is a beautiful throw, okay? And that is the thing that we have to remember. This kid's super talented, okay? I know that at some point people get sick of hearing about all the talent that Anthony Richardson possesses, but it's true. The dude has a cannon. He does. Like, he's got a ton of arm talent. It's fun. It's really impressive when it looks like that. Okay, and early in that response from Shane Steichen, he mentions that he just wants to see Anthony Richardson get better every single week. And that is, I would say, the thing that I want to see as well. Because Anthony Richardson is just a kid. He's incredibly young. Anthony Richardson is younger than every quarterback that got drafted in this previous NFL draft, except for two. He's older than Drake May, and he's older than J.J. McCarthy by like a couple months. Okay? The dude is incredibly young because J.J. McCarthy's out for the year with the torn meniscus. Drake May's probably going to be the starter in New England because Brissett got hurt. Like Anthony Richardson is going to be the second youngest starting quarterback in the NFL this year. Like this dude is incredibly young, and it's clear in just about everything that he does. The way he answers questions at the podium, it's clear. Like it's so funny listening to all these press conferences because Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson oftentimes get asked the exact same questions, right? You know, maybe there's slight variations to them, but at their hearts, it's the same question. And you hear Anthony Richardson answer a question, and it's like, geez, this dude sounds like he's 22. And then you hear Shane Steichen answer the same question, and they're just vastly different, and they should be. Because one guy's 22, and the other guy is 39. So as this year progresses, this is the thing that we have to remember. The guy going under center and playing quarterback for the Colts this year is the second youngest quarterback in the NFL. He started 23 games since high school. He hasn't played a ton of quarterback. Okay, that needs to be remembered when he makes mistakes this year. Because like all 22-year-olds at all of their jobs, Anthony Richardson is going to make mistakes. Okay, I don't know what you do for a living, but whatever you do, I guarantee that whenever you started it, right, and you were 22 years old, fresh out of college, right, doing this thing that you had kind of learned how to do but had never really done yourself, I guarantee you that you made mistakes. And I know that because when I was 22 and I was working here fresh out of college, I made mistakes. I've gotten in a lot of trouble for some of the mistakes that I made, but that's part of being young. That's part of doing something new and being inexperienced. Okay, even experienced NFL quarterbacks make mistakes. The Kansas City Chiefs, led by Andy Reid, the best head coach in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL, they were fourth to last. They were 28th in turnover margin last year. They turned the ball over all the time. And that's the best offense in the NFL, led by the best quarterback in the NFL, coached by the best coach in the NFL. So even experienced players make mistakes. Tom Brady threw over 200 interceptions in his career. Okay, that's 10 interceptions a year, and that's the best quarterback ever. Like mistakes are going to be made. Now, more mistakes are going to be made by Anthony Richardson because he's only 22. And that is the thing that we have to remember. Young people, whether it's playing quarterback in the NFL or working at some accounting firm or being a plumber, whatever it is, 22-year-olds make mistakes at their jobs. Okay, the difference is Anthony Richardson's an NFL quarterback. When he makes a mistake, 70,000 people are going to yell at him for it. Okay, but he's no different. He's going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Okay, so just be ready for it. And when it happens, you got to be like, oh, that's hopefully, they are mistakes that 22-year-old quarterbacks make that can be coached out of them. Okay, like Josh Allen still makes mistakes, even though he's been in the league for, however many years now, but he makes less mistakes now than he did in his first and second year as the quarterback of the Bills. And that is the thing that we should see from Anthony Richardson. The improvement every week should come in the form of not making the same mistake twice, because that's what coachable players do. That's what smart players do. So I'm excited for Anthony Richardson this year. Mistakes are going to happen. Some really awesome things I think are going to happen as well, just because of how athletic he is. We just have to remember when he makes those mistakes that he's 22, and that 22-year-old quarterbacks, 22-year-old accountants, 22-year-old plumbers, whatever, they make mistakes as well. Okay, so if you want to get upset at Anthony Richardson this year, that's fine, but just keep in mind the dude hasn't played a ton of quarterback. All right, and I think that if you want to see a downside of all of this, the downside would be that Chris Ballard wouldn't have made this selection for a project like Anthony Richardson, a guy who really needs to be developed, unless he knew he had some leash in terms of how long he's going to be the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts. So Chris Ballard going to be around a while longer, and hopefully so is Anthony Richardson. Hopefully he continues to get better as he, gets a little bit more experience underneath his belt. A guy who's pretty experienced is Colts center Ryan Kelley. Been in the league for 9 years, and he said something pretty interesting about this Indianapolis Colts offensive line. I've got that audio for you when we come back here in 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Ryan Kelley, the Colts. Just love to talk, man. It's the Colts' favorite activity. They just love to open their mouths and just say things. Oh my gosh. Ryan Kelley yesterday, he was asked about one of the undrafted offensive linemen that is, part of, this Colts training camp roster and all that fun stuff, and he's given this awesome long answer about this player, but in the middle, he says something very interesting about this Colts offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, small town Kentucky kid, goes and plays at Marshall, undrafted, small signing bonus, comes in, to a very veteran established offensive line with, I told the people at the luncheon, I think this is the most talented our offensive line's been, 15 guys total. Obviously not going to be able to keep 15, but I thought Tucker, just from day one, tough guy, kind of reminds me a little bit of Matt Slauson. Probably a little more talented, but I love Slaw to death. He was in year 10 by the time we got to him. You know what I mean? So, Slauson also broke his neck and sternum in one game and kept playing. So he was tough as nails too. But the long story short, Tuck did such a great job of being like a great accountable guy in the room. He brought some character, obviously got a little Kentucky twang to him. So, he became a fan favorite pretty quickly. But I think what he showed in the last couple of games is how versatile he can be. I mean, Tony's going to stress those guys that are bubble to backups, right? You can't have 10 guys dressing on Sunday, so you got to be able to play positions on both sides, center, tackle. I think he's done a great job of just transitioning, playing hard, being accountable for his team, and getting better. That's all you can ask for.
That was Colts center Ryan Kelley talking about one of the undrafted offensive linemen, but in the middle there, about 15 seconds in, he says something interesting. Ryan Kelley, who's played for the Colts for the last 9 years, said that he thinks that this is the Colts' most talented offensive line room ever, 1 through 15. Now, obviously, as he says, you can't keep all 15. You can't dress 10 guys on Sunday, right? So they're going to have to narrow that down. But look, I hear that. I hear the other conversations of people talking about this Colts offensive line potentially being a top 5 unit again. Man, this offensive line better be awesome. They better be incredible. Okay, and when you look at the ages of the guys, like it makes sense that they would be good this year. A lot of guys in their primes, 26, 27, 28. Ryan Kelley, only offensive lineman that's going to play a ton that's in his 30s. He's 31. So age-wise, like it makes sense that these guys should be able to play well. And I think it's such a big claim for Ryan Kelley because the dude's played a lot of football. Okay, and hearing him say that, like this Colts offensive line should be fine because Ryan Kelley doesn't really seem like a guy who speaks in hyperbole, even though I'll be honest, it kind of felt like hyperbole. And I don't understand why he would say it though. Like that's really kind of the thing that irks me. It's like all this does is raise the expectation that everyone has. And I sit back and I look at sports and I listen to these coaches and players raise the expectations that people have for them. And I'm just like, why would you do that? You just open yourself up to more scrutiny. Look at Deion Sanders. He wouldn't be as scrutinized as he is and critiqued and attacked as much as he is if he just kept his mouth shut and didn't make it sound like the turnaround at Colorado was going to be fast. Okay? Like talking yourself up does absolutely nothing for you. Does absolutely nothing for you. Okay? But at the same time, Ryan Kelley doesn't really seem like the type of guy to just run his mouth. Okay, seems like he thinks before he says things, and I hope he's right. I hope that this Colts offensive line is awesome this year because it's going to have to be. Okay, every team in the NFL, no matter who you are, no matter who your quarterback is, like you don't win games if you don't have a good offensive line. Okay, like we're all very focused on Anthony Richardson and the rest of this offense, and rightfully so. But the Colts offensive line isn't good, then it's going to be hard to evaluate Anthony Richardson. Okay, so like this offensive line needs to be awesome. Like they need to keep Anthony Richardson upright. They need to create running room for Jonathan Taylor. Everything starts up front for this offense, just like it does for every other team in the NFL. And him saying that, that the room is like 15 deep, like that's insane to me. But it also tells me that if one of these guys gets hurt, like Ryan Kelley, sprains his ankle, or Quentin Nelson gets rolled up on and he misses a couple games, like it tells me that like that's not an excuse for this Colts offensive line. Because apparently they're really deep. But we'll see what winds up happening there. Speaking of seeing what winds up happening, Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are in the middle of a race for the playoffs. Picked up a big win last night. The Fever went on the road to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Dream, won 84-89. Big win for the Fever as they now hold the tiebreaker over the Atlanta Dream, right? And so that's a big deal. I'll tell you why here in a sec. The Fever are also playing the Chicago Sky on Friday. If they win that game as well, then they'll hold the tiebreaker over them as well for playoff seeding. And this is all very important because the Indiana Fever are 7th in the playoff seeding right now, followed by the Sky in 8th, followed by the Atlanta Dream in 9th. So tiebreakers and all those things could potentially come into play. If I was the Fever, I would just win every game that they played going forward. That way they didn't really have to worry about it. So that's what I would do if I was the Fever. But, we'll see what they wind up doing. But they played well last night. They were led, of course, by Caitlin Clark. But when you look at the box score, Kelsey Mitchell leaps out, man. She's awesome. I love watching her play basketball. She reminds me so much of De'Aaron Fox. If you've watched him play for the Kings, just this fast left-handed guard that can get to the rim and finish well. Like she's a really good player. And, she showed it last night, man. She led the way for the Fever. 29 points, 7 rebounds. She plays with just an incredible amount of speed. And it's awesome. She's a good shooter. She didn't shoot it super great last night. She was only 3 of 10 from 3, but she got downhill. She got to the rim. She finished. She's not the best passer in the world, like only 1 assist last night. It's not really her forte, but she can really score it. And there are nights where the Indiana Fever need that, and they needed it last night. She stepped up in a big way, getting some major buckets. Caitlin Clark was once again great. She rolls her ankle, I believe in the second quarter. Okay. And it's like, oh, geez, man. Like, if she's done, then the Fever team's done. Nothing good is going to happen after this. She comes back in the game, plays through the pain. She played really well. 19 points, hit 4 of 9 threes, had 7 rebounds and 7 assists to go along with it. And I love it when these Indiana Fever guards rebound. Like, Kelsey Mitchell had 7. Caitlin Clark also had 7. And, like, they're able to just grab the rebound and just go. Because this team is so good in the open floor, especially when Caitlin Clark has the ball, because she's just this incredible open floor passer. Like if when it comes to the WNBA, I don't know who you wouldn't take anyone over Caitlin Clark if you're picking point guards to lead a fast break. Like she finds everybody, and and if you go to everybody else, like she's a tremendous finisher. Right. And so her rebounding and Kelsey Mitchell's rebounding last night, like I think played a big role in their win. Clark obviously shot it well. As I said, 4 of 9 from 3, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. She just continues to be the engine that runs this Indiana Fever team. Like she just is. It's impressive for any rookie in any league to just be able to be the focal point of a team and win games. Like it's incredibly difficult. And when I think about Caitlin Clark and just the season that she's had, like I can't help but think about LeBron James, because Caitlin Clark shows up. She has all these expectations, just like how LeBron James showed up in the NBA and everyone had all these expectations. And LeBron James has met every single one of them. Okay. And he definitely did it early in his career. And Caitlin Clark has done the exact same thing. We had all these expectations for her, how she was going to elevate the league and how she was going to be awesome and all these things. And she has been. She has elevated the league. She has been awesome, right? And she's going to lead this Indiana Fever team to the playoffs, it looks like. 7th seed, still got 10 games left to go. The magic number is 7. So, like, she's been just incredible this year, and we saw another display of how great of a basketball player she is last night. So, Aaliyah Boston, I would be remiss if I didn't mention her. She also played well, 14 points and 11 rebounds. She's just so reliable in the half court, whether it's, the Fever post her up and she scores, or they run some screen and roll with Caitlin Clark. Like, she's just this solid, consistent presence that the Indiana Fever have. And she's a really good player. And we once again saw last night why this Indiana Fever team is kind of scary for the playoffs. Like when Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston, all 3 play well, good luck, because they're going to score a boatload of points when that happens. And, the Fever played halfway decent defense last night, only gave up 79 points, way better than the 90 that they gave up against the Lynx in their previous game over the weekend. And so they, have to continue to defend a little bit better. I think that's going to happen if Lexi Hull continues to play 30 minutes like she did last night. Like when she's on the floor, it's pretty evident she's got two jobs: shoot threes and defend. She didn't shoot a ton last night, only took 3 shots, only scored 2 points. But man, I thought she defended really well. And that's important. I think that Caitlin Clark and Tyrese Halliburton have a lot of similarities just in terms of they're these great passers who can really shoot it and make plays out of the pick and roll. But defensively, like, they have some limitations. And so you have to pair them with someone in the backcourt that can also, that can really defend. And when Lexi Hull's alongside Caitlin Clark, like, they have that. Like, Lexi Hull has been very impressive, not only in her ability to shoot the ball, but also just in her ability to play good, solid, strong defense. So really impressed with the Fever. Their next game, I believe, is tomorrow night. I know for a fact that they're playing Friday night against the Chicago Sky. Like, that is, look, it's always a big game whenever the Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark play against each other. That game's Friday night at 7:00. I think they play tomorrow night. My internet is messing up here. Oh, here we go. So tomorrow night they're off. It looks like. Do they play Thursday? They don't. They don't play. We know they do play tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, the Indiana Fever host the Connecticut Sun. That game's set to start at 7:00, and then Friday night, Fever Sky 7:30 on Ion. Didn't know what that was until Caitlin Clark showed up. So cannot wait to watch that game because it's always fun when Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark go at it. Because of that, I know for a fact that I've got content for Monday. I got content every day of the week. What am I talking about? So, yeah, the Dan Dockett Show is set to come your way here in roughly 6 minutes or so. Thanks so much for tuning into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thanks to Zach Hicks for tuning in. Great interview with him a little bit earlier. I mean, he's fun. If you missed it, you can listen to the podcast. Just search for the Real Jonathan Smith podcast on Apple or Spotify. Going to get that up as soon as I can when the show ends. While you're at it, head over to YouTube, subscribe to Indie Sports Ticket, join the chat, join the conversation. They're always talking about something in the chat, and oftentimes it's pretty entertaining. So thanks again for tuning in to the Real Jonathan Smith Show. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way here in about 5 minutes.